All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope all of you guys had an incredible weekend. We are also live on AMP, so if you're listening on YouTube or on the podcast feeds, don't forget that AMP is the very first place that you guys can get these shows. Getting to the top 5 of our top 25 players of the last 25 years today with number 5, Shaquille O'Neal. And then we also have a little game that we're going to play off the top of the show that we stole from Uncle Colin, who runs the company here at The Volume. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to The Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. And if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. Also going to be doing some mailbag questions the rest of this week and potentially into the future, so don't forget to drop some mailbag questions in the comments on YouTube as well. All right. One other thing, I'm sorry about the delay starting Tuesday this week. I have not gotten sick since I caught COVID back in late 2020. I was one of the early people that got it. And I've been on this crazy hot streak of somehow avoiding getting like legitimately sick. Like I'll feel under the weather here and there, but like never like truly be dead to rights, like sick. And I got hit like a truck on Thursday night. And so that kind of messed up the whole weekend, and that was why we ended up delaying the start this week. So bear with me a little bit as well with my voice. I've had a pretty bad cough. So that will be something I have to deal with a little bit today, but glad to be here. We're just going to be going Tuesday through Saturday instead of Monday through Friday, but same kind of cadence like we've been doing. So we're going to do a game called Fake Questions, Real Answers. We're not going to do it regularly. I'm just stealing it today because I think it's perfect for this particular theme. It's going to be centered around the FIBA World Cup basketball tournament. The way this works, Colin Cowherd does this on his show all the time, but basically I'm going to have a fake question that kind of centers around a topic with Team USA or with FIBA, and then I'll give you guys an answer from there. So, fake question number 1. Does Team USA losing to Lithuania mean anything for that USA world champion debate that was going around a couple weeks ago? As you can probably guess, the answer is no. There are 3 reasons why. 1, basketball is a very high-variance sport. There's a reason why even the greatest basketball team of all time, the 1996 Bulls, lost 13 basketball games. That's a lot of basketball games for the greatest team ever to lose, right? How does it happen? Any of you guys who've ever played pickup basketball or play in your men's league or anything along those lines, you get into a game where you're the better team, right? But you come out and you're a little lackadaisical. That other team really wants to beat you, so they're bringing a ton of effort and energy. Maybe they get really hot from 3 and make some shots early. Suddenly you look up, you're down 15, 20 points, and you're like, oh shit, guys, we better get it together and start playing hard. And so then you start playing hard and you make a run and you get back into the game. But by the time you get back into the game, now you're exhausted because it takes a ton of energy to get back into the game. And then maybe they hit a couple more shots because they're feeling good because they've been shooting well all game. And then suddenly you look up at the scoreboard and you're down by 8 with 4 minutes left. And you're like, holy shit, we're about to lose this thing. It's a very common thing that happens in the game of basketball, right? And that's literally what happened against Lithuania. USA came out really slow, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Lithuania was playing with a shit ton of force. Like they were cutting hard. They were screening hard. They were running hard in transition. Everything they were doing with the basketball or without the basketball was done with a ton of physical force. They really wanted to beat the U.S. team. And U.S. wasn't playing, the U.S. Guards in particular weren't playing any damn defense to start this particular game. I was tracking it this morning because I rewatched the entire game, and the sheer amount of wide open threes they gave up in the first quarter was ridiculous. Like there was a little pick and roll off the right wing, and Josh Hart is guarding a shooter on the left wing, on the left wing, and instead of like staying in a position where he can close out, he just sits down at the foul line, and the guy just makes a simple swing pass over to a wide open shooter. It's too much help at the nail. You got to find a sweet spot there. It's one thing if the dude's getting toasted, but you can't just completely ignore a shooter without really serving any purpose, right? And there was possession after that where Jonas Valanciunas hit a pick and pop 3 on the right wing. Anthony Edwards was literally jogging around the screen. So as a result, I think it was Paolo Banchero that was in the ball screen. Paolo Banchero had no choice but to step up and help and ignore Jonas Valanciunas, who popped back and hit the 3. Possession after that, there was a Jonas post up on the right block. Anthony Edwards runs over and double teams along the baseline. This was his double team. Just kind of went over like this and was standing under the basket. Didn't actually get close to Jonas. Didn't disrupt the pass. Literally did nothing but stand there like this. And Jonas threw a skip pass. Jalen Brunson made the rotation, but Josh Hart didn't make the rotation to the next guy. Swing, wide open three on the left wing. Like wide open, like practice threes that these guys were making. By the way, Anthony Edwards had a really, really nice offensive game against Lithuania, but he was terrible on the defensive end, especially in the first half. Just wasn't trying, and legitimately was a big problem in their defense. The last one I put down was they ran a Spain pick and roll, which again, that's where you have a shooter underneath the basket. You run your pick and roll, and then they interchange, right? And Anthony Edwards was guarding the shooter underneath the basket and just ignored his man and was kind of like just floating around in the middle of the floor. I think Walker Kessler was in the game at this point. And Walker Kessler's in a drop coverage on the pick and roll, and he's in position to handle everything at the rim. And Ant's just over helping, just floating around, doing nothing. Swing pass. Once again, Jalen Brunson makes the rotation to the wing, but Anthony Edwards misses the rotation to the corner. Wide open, stand still, practice wide open three. He knocks it down, right? I mean, that's 4 just in the first quarter. Completely uncontested threes, and they made all 4 of them. And like, you know, it's funny, we talk a lot about hot shooting, right? And what do I always say on the show? Like when a guy makes a lot of tough shots later in the game, usually if you go back, you can find early portions of the game where those guys got wide open shots. Because once, you know, all these professional basketball players, they're professional basketball players. Like they do this shit every single day. And so when they feel good about themselves and they feel confident, they can make shots, contested shots. You know, at the end of the day, a basketball player is a basketball player. A contest is a contest. And it doesn't matter if it's Brandon Ingram contesting you or whoever the hell it is. If you're a great shooter because you're a professional basketball player and you made 3 wide open threes in the first quarter and you get a late clock situation and you're getting smothered and you just throw some shit up, you're feeling good about yourself, you're going to make those sometimes. And so I think those things are always intricately connected, right? And this is just part of the way that the game of basketball works. And that's why you've seen your favorite NBA team lose to a lesser team in the regular season. You've probably seen that flow happen before. That's why we call it March Madness in the NCAA tournament when it's single elimination, because good teams lose to bad teams all the time in single game sample sizes, right? That's why the NBA uses a 7-game series so that we can truly determine who the better basketball team was. Because in any 1-game sample, a team can get hot, a team can bring better effort, an executional error, all those sorts of things can be a wrinkle in a 1-game sample size. So does USA losing to Lithuania mean anything about Team USA and the world champion debate? No, it doesn't. Reason number 2, international teams experience much better continuity than Team USA does. A gold medal for Team USA is expected rather than respected. And so as a result, it's kind of a low reward, high risk proposition for most NBA players. Also, the NBA season is an extremely long season. And so a lot of guys just want to take a break. So Team USA has a wildly different roster for every tournament. Why does that matter? Think about how much we talked about continuity this last year. The last 2 years with Denver and Golden State, right? Continuity matters. Players figure out their hierarchy. Your stars figure out who's kind of like where they're at in the pecking order, right? All your role players get deeply familiar with their roles and they learn how to excel in those roles. The coaches get a really good pulse for the team and understand the highs and lows and how to kind of like navigate that, right? It's really difficult. And like it's difficult in a large sample size. Like we were talking about continuity with other teams that had significantly more time to get together, right? Now we're talking about FIBA, and it's like you get a couple of weeks of practice and you get like a couple of exhibition games. Then you get 5 pool play games or 3 pool play games and 2 second round games. And then you go right into single elimination. And so it's a significant disadvantage for Team USA in particular that they have just different groups of people in every single tournament. Whereas for these international teams, because literally winning a World Cup or winning an Olympic tournament is a gigantic achievement. I would argue if you asked Luka Doncic, what would you rather win in your career, an Olympic medal, gold medal with Slovenia, or a FIBA World Cup gold medal with Slovenia, or winning a title with the Dallas Mavericks, I bet you he says Slovenia. Because for these guys, it matters so much more, because if you win one of those tournaments, it's such a remarkable achievement. There's a different level of pride playing for your country that exists outside of that because of that risk-reward element. I don't think it's a lack of pride for Team USA. I think it's literally just like it's hard for them to feel the urgency that a lot of these other teams feel. And so they have better continuity in their roster from tournament to tournament. It's a significant advantage when we get to these tournaments. I mean, honestly, like guys, like even the Team USA basketball teams that get gold medals typically like underperform, right? I mean, like they win and then you're like, man, but I mean, it was kind of close there with Spain for a minute, or like, man, it was close against this other team for a minute. Like, yeah, they should have won all these games by 30, right? And it's because of that continuity. And I would argue if you give one of those teams all, 9 months together to build that continuity and understanding, our Team USA teams would kick the shit out of these international teams. But it's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? Reason number 3 why Team USA losing to Lithuania does not mean anything for the World Championship debate. A real Team USA would kick the living shit out of the rest of the world teams. Our starters would be Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Anthony Davis. Not only is that a ridiculously talented starting lineup, but every single one of those players in that group complements the others extremely well. All of them know how to play off the ball and on the ball. All of them know how to play defense. All of them have a consistent reputation as guys who are willing to do the dirty work to win basketball games. Your bench would be Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Edwards, and Jaylen Brown. That's ridiculous. These are players, and by the way, I just based that off my top 25 players list this summer. Here are players who would get cut from Team USA's 12-man roster. Paul George, Brandon Ingram, Kyrie Irving, Jalen Brunson, De'Aaron Fox, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, James Harden. I can go on and on and on. I'm sorry, but it's just not close. Like, the world is catching up, yes. Like, 3 of the top 5 players in the world, in my opinion, are not Americans, right? In the global sense, the game is growing significantly. I don't think it'll be long before you could make a team world that would beat Team USA, and arguably with the top-end guys like Jokic and Giannis, like arguably Team World beats Team USA, but there is no Team World, right? There's just these other countries, right? And each of those countries are improving little by little, but Team USA still has everybody lapped in this department. We just don't send our best players. So, like, again, like when we have these discussions, like I think it's important to differentiate between the health of the rest of the world when it comes to basketball. The game of basketball is growing, and I think it's so good. But that's not the same as the NBA not being the best professional league in the world. It's still it's like the NBA basketball, gigantic chasm, and then you're going to get to your Euro leagues and your the NBL in Australia and leagues like that, right? Like that's where there's a gigantic chasm. It's not the same, and that's why like I'm okay with NBA players calling themselves the best in the world and things along those lines. I think that's a reputation that the league has earned. All right, our second FIBA-related fake question. Jason, Austin Reeves got barbecued by Lithuania yesterday. He gave up 12 points and 5 post-ups. Steve Kerr had to pull him from the game. Does that mean the hype has gotten out of control and that Austin isn't that good? No, it doesn't mean anything. First of all, Team USA as a unit got their ass kicked in that game, especially on the defensive end. I just broke down for you guys in the last segment all the little ways that Team USA wasn't sharp defensively and was giving up wide open shots. Just the 4 possessions I broke down were as many points as Austin gave up in post-ups in that game, right? Also, we have a large sample size that Austin is a very good post defender. Austin played 16 playoff games this year for the Lakers. He got posted up 6 times and got 5 stops. That's right, he gave up 1 bucket in 6 attempts that teams tried to post him up. Austin got posted up by the opponent 33 times in the regular season this year, about once every other game, and allowed just 18 points. That's 0.55 points per possession when you try to post up Austin Reeves. That's outstanding. Before the Lithuania game for Team USA, other countries tried to post up Austin Reeves 9 times, and he allowed just 6 points, forcing 4 turnovers. He had a bad game. He got absolutely flambéed, barbecued, destroyed cooked in the post against Lithuania. That's a fact. Sorry, guys. But again, like that was, like I said, a part of that confidence. Like, right? Like Lithuania makes a bunch of shots in the first half. They're feeling themselves. I mean, Instagram yesterday was just a nonstop barrage of like screenshots of Lithuanian players like smirking and making faces at different American players while they were busting their ass. They didn't lose that game because of Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves played like shit. He played like shit. He got his ass kicked. But you don't erase an entire year's worth of sample size over one basketball game. Posting up Austin Reeves has been a bad idea for professional basketball players all year. And Lithuania having a great night doesn't change that. Here's the thing with Austin Reeves. And there's a reason why I brought him up today, because he's getting a lot of attention this summer off of a great playoff run and off of this Team USA experience, right? Yes, he's been getting a ton of attention. Yeah, he's a Laker, and Laker fans they're a lot, right? They're loud, they're obnoxious. Like you guys know, I'm not necessarily a Lakers fan. I just root for the Lakers because I'm a LeBron James fan. But I have a lot of interactions with Lakers fans. I understand it. Like, I get it. I get what the frustration is for a lot of people. Like, they get a lot of attention. They get all the coverage. You guys got to understand the business side of it, right? Like, nobody does this for free, like except for people that are trying to get paid to do this, right? And all of the companies out there are getting paid to do this. And so they're going to do what's in the best interest of their company. And so they're going to talk Lakers, and they're going to talk Warriors, and they're going to talk Celtics, and they're going to talk Knicks, and they're going to talk big markets because that's what drives revenue. And all these people got families to pay to feed, right? So like it's just the reality. You guys see it on this show. Like we do a lot of Lakers Warriors content. We cover the rest of the league, but we do a lot of Lakers Warriors content, right? Because I got bills to pay, man. Like we gotta acknowledge the realities of that, right? And so I get it. I get all the hype, and I get that that's been frustrating. But here's the thing: Austin's also really damn good at basketball. He scored 20 plus points in the playoffs 8 times this year. He averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists on 62% true shooting while sharing the court. That was all in the playoffs, by the way. While sharing the court with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Dennis Schroeder, and D'Angelo Russell. Splitting touches with all those guys. 17, 4, and 5 on 62% true shooting. Think about how you guys view Desmond Bane as a player. He has 9 20-point playoff games in his career in 3 playoff runs. And his career playoff average is 17 points, the same as Austin Reeves. Think about how you think of Karl Anthony Towns. He has just 7 20-point playoff games in 3 playoff runs. Think about Jordan Poole. I bet every Warriors fan who listens to this show thinks Jordan Poole is a better player than Austin Reeves. I'd argue Austin Reeves is better right this second, but that Jordan Poole is going to be better because he has all this upside. He's such a freak athlete, right? Like Jordan Poole in the long run is going to be a better player than Austin, but like most Warriors fans would argue that Jordan Poole's better than Austin, right? 35 career playoff games. He's only scored 20 plus 9 times in those 35 playoff games, and his career playoff average is 14.5. Austin did it 8 times in one season, guys, in half as many games. Like, Austin's legit. He's outrageously efficient. He can do it as a primary initiator. He literally closed out the Memphis Grizzlies in game 1 in the playoffs this year, just spamming high pick and roll. LeBron standing in the damn corner while Austin runs the offense. Like, that's how freaking good this kid is. He can do it off the ball. He shot 46% on catch and shoot threes in the playoffs this year, 40% for the regular season. He's a very good defensive player. We broke down the post-up stuff earlier, but he always does his job. He's not an outstanding defensive player. You're not going to put him on someone and shut them down. But if you put him in a 5-man unit defensively, he's going to do his job and he's going to make plays. He's not going to hurt you on that end of the floor. Is he an all-star? No. I don't think so. Is he a future all-star? Probably not. I don't think he has the athletic upside, and the guard position is too stacked in the NBA. But he's firmly in that tier right below all-star, and he has proven himself on the biggest stage, or at least just shy of the biggest stage. The biggest stage you can play in as a basketball player is the NBA Finals. And the dude was a reliable third option for a conference finalist team this year. So, like, I get the Lakers hate. I do. But don't be on the wrong side of history with the Austin Reeves stuff. The kid is legit. And, like, if you really watch him and just try to appreciate him for what he is, and just stop thinking about the Lakers for a second and just envision him as a basketball player. He's just a kid who's trying to grind out a spot in the NBA, and he's doing a damn good job of it. And if you're a fan of the game of basketball, I think you guys will enjoy watching him in the long run. All right, last one. Jason, does Team USA losing to Lithuania signify that Team USA will not win the World Cup this year? So first of all, I said before the tournament that USA should be the favorite. They still are. But that if I had to pick between the USA team and the field, that I would pick the field. Why? Because I had a feeling they'd be in close games, right? We just got one here against Lithuania. But close games can go either way. And this is not a juggernaut type of roster. Yeah, like if you sent that team that I mentioned earlier, the actual Team USA over there, yeah, I'd pick them over the field 9 times out of 10, right? Like they're barring an absolute freakish performance from a Jokic or a Giannis or a Luka, and just a heroic defensive effort from everybody on. Like, it would require the most perfect set of circumstances for that team to lose a game, right? But aside from that circumstance, the types of Team USAs that we send over there, they're not juggernauts. All it takes is one close game where a couple guys miss a couple shots for your team and a couple guys make a couple shots on the other team. So yeah, I pick the field over Team USA. That said, I still think the Team USA is the best remaining team, and I still think they deserve to be the favorite, which they still are. The quarterfinals are set at USA versus Italy. I think if I'm reading the bracket correctly, that if they win, they'll play the winner of Germany versus Latvia, and then potentially have to play either Canada or Lithuania, Serbia, or Slovenia in the finals. I think Canada should beat Slovenia is my guess. They have just a long line of perimeter defenders to throw at Luka to fatigue him. I think that over the course of that game, it's going to benefit them. And then also just SGA is really starting to find his groove. SGA hit basically the game winner the other day versus Spain. Really impressive down the stretch defense. Dylan Brooks hit a huge 3 on the left wing that tied it, and then SGA just textbook hard dribble right, pull back dribble, knocks down basically the game winner. I think Canada is probably the second most likely team to win it behind the USA. That's what I said earlier, and I still feel that way. Again, single elimination can go either way. But for right now, I still lean towards the USA, but I would take the field over the USA, meaning I do expect the more likely outcome is that Team USA loses at some point in the elimination round. All right, 22 minutes later, let's get into number 5 on our top 25 players of the last 25 years, Shaquille O'Neal. Accolades: 4-time NBA champion, best player on 3 championship teams, second best player on 1 championship team, 8-time first-team All-NBA, 14-time All-NBA overall. Technically, 5 of those selections were before 1999 when this list is supposed to start. 7 of his first-team selections were all in the last 25 years. 3-time All-Defense and 2-time scoring champion 1995 and 2000. Won the regular season MVP in 2000, and he is a 3-time NBA Finals MVP. His claim to fame is he is the most physically dominant player in NBA history. This is how crazy this is. We talk a lot about MJ, right? The other day when we did our MJ LeBron kind of mailbag question, and we talked about dominance, right? And had the fact that what MJ did in the 90s is kind of like unprecedented. And, obviously Bill Russell and the Celtics won 8 consecutive championships, but that was forever ago. The league was incredibly tiny. That Celtics team was freaking stacked. Like, there was debate over whether or not Wilt or Bill Russell was better. I mean, most people would agree Bill was slightly better, but it wasn't the same type of thing as what MJ did in the 90s, right? Well, there's one other player in NBA history who has won 3 consecutive NBA Finals MVP awards, and that's Shaquille O'Neal. He's 7'1". He was well over 300 pounds. Everything that Shaq did came down to footwork. We talked about this a lot with Jokic, but like, being big is only half the battle, right? There are a lot of big human beings in the world. All you have to do is look at these FIBA games and look at how many non-NBA players are between 6'10" and 7'2" that have a good jump hook and can make free throws and do all that kind of stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of big dudes in the world, but that coordination, especially as it pertains to footwork, is everything, because your footwork is what allows you to inflict your physicality on your opponent, right? Because your base is constantly moving, right? Have you guys ever had that, have done that test where, like, you stand with your feet together and then someone like pushes you on the shoulder and you like fall down or like you lose your balance? But then if you stand in like an athletic stance, like with your feet spread out to your shoulders, if someone pushes you on the shoulder, like, you won't move, because when you have your base wide and established, it's much harder to move you off your base. Well, that same principle applies in every facet of basketball, but especially in post defense. Why? Because there's a lot more contact in post offense defense matchups, right? So on the perimeter, sometimes you can be off balance and a dude can nudge you, but they might call a hand check or they might call you for hip checking or something along those lines. As a matter of fact, I think the league calls that too much these days, right? But in the post, there's a lot of contact that's allowed. So guys are constantly pushing on each other, and it's a two-way battle, right? Like the post player's trying to back down and the post defender's trying to like chuck with his forearm and hold his ground on the backside, right? And so who has the best leverage ends up winning that battle most of the time. And so as the post player, you're constantly feeling on your shoulder blades where the defender is, and you're trying to change your footwork either by taking a drop step or a pivot of some kind to get to a position where then you can get separation from the post defender for a shot. And so having really sharp footwork and being really polished with your coordination with your feet in that particular element of offense is the difference between a player being able to physically dominate a player or get pushed off of his spot. I talked about this a lot with Jokic, but Jokic, sometimes you'll watch him and he'll chop his feet a lot. He's really good at resetting his base. He's in that post backup position. As he's dribbling, he's constantly shuffling his feet and resetting his base. Why? Because he doesn't just hit you once. He's hitting you once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, maybe even 5 times before he takes a shot. And he needs to constantly reset his base so that when he bumps you, he moves you. Whereas if he doesn't have his base set, that second contact, maybe he loses that battle and he loses ground away from the basket, right? Shaq had really, really sharp footwork. His drop step was immaculate. We've all seen tons of videos of Shaq getting that drop step foot past the defender's foot and then pivoting. And as he pivoting, just throwing the defender out of the way as he goes up and dunks it, right? Like he added a couple of basic, simple post moves as well. Everything starts with the bully ball, right? The footwork, the drop steps, trying to get dunks at the basket. But when he did get stood up, or when there was a defender waiting on the back line that he wanted to avoid, Shaq had 2 moves that he basically went to consistently from both blocks. And that was a right-handed hook over his left shoulder. And like Shaq would call it like a turnaround fadeaway, but it was kind of like a one-handed push shot over his right shoulder. So he'd turn over the shoulder, and instead of shooting like a post player with 2 hands, he would just kind of reach up with one hand and shoot essentially like a turnaround jumper with one hand. I don't even know what you want to call it. Push shot, a kind of like a turnaround floater, whatever it was. But he was pretty good with those 2 particular shots. And that was enough with his physical frame to just utterly obliterate every front line in the NBA over that late 90s, early 2000s stretch, right? And essentially, like, he was so dominant over that time that, like, every single team had to load up with 3 or 4 centers just to commit fouls on him. The strategy around the league basically became the same. If you were guarding Shaq and he went for a hook shot or a turnaround, you would try to contest without fouling. But if he made any sort of physically aggressive move towards the basket, it was wrap his ass up. You had to, because he was a career 53% career free throw shooter. And so that ended up being your best opportunity to get stops. But that was what you did. You tried when he did bless you with a crazier shot that was further away from the basket, you would sit there and pray that he'd miss. And then when he was physically aggressive, you'd foul. And that led to his crowning achievement, which was his three-peat in the early 2000s with the Lakers. He averaged 29, 14, and 4 with 3 blocks per game over that 3-year span. Won MVP in 2000, finished 3rd place in the MVP voting the next 2 years. Averaged 30, 15, and 3 in the playoff runs. They lost that Lakers team lost just 13 playoff games in 3 years. They were 45 and 13 in the playoffs. Think about how insane that is. In 15 NBA Finals games, he averaged 36 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists per game with 3 blocks on 60% shooting and won all 3 Finals MVPs. It was one of the most dominant stretches of basketball by any single player in NBA history. Biggest what if of Shaq's career: what if Shaq had taken better care of his body? The decline for Shaq came very quickly when he got to his 30s. 2003 was his 4th consecutive season, averaging at least 27 points per game. For the rest of his career after that, he never averaged over 23 points per game. It was like an immediate fall off of the cliff. He had this like toe issue, this like arthritis toe thing. You guys probably remember Shaq going to training camp and getting surgery in season because he got injured on company time, so he was going to recover on company time, right? Like that was kind of the beginning of the end for him athletically. He did win another championship with the Heat in 2006, but it was more of a supporting player. He scored 20 plus points just 9 times in their 23 game playoff run, and Dallas held him to single digits twice in the final. So it was much more of a supporting type of player. He was a supremely gifted athlete when he was younger, and once that faded and he put on the weight, he just wasn't the same type of dominant force that he was when he was younger. We didn't even talk about the Orlando years. Like I went back and watched this morning the 1995 series with Chicago, and I watched game 1 of that series, and I was watching Shaq, and literally Chicago had to go to their 3rd string center in the first quarter, and he was making all of his free throws in that game too, which was causing problems at least at the beginning of the game. But like you watch the way he moved up and down the floor, he was moving like a wing. And so it's crazy because like you start to think about how good he could have been, because he's easily, top 15, top 10 in NBA history, regardless of position, depending on who you ask. A lot of people have him higher than that. I have him 5th in the last 25 years. Imagine how good he could have been if he had taken better care of his body. Very, very interesting career, Shaq, and very difficult to rank him compared to his peers. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. We will be back tomorrow with number 4. Don't forget to drop some mailbag questions in the comments. I will see you guys then.